I've got to make a call after this to a client, a potential client, that I thought, well, I don't really want to work with them because I don't like their terms. But then I thought, okay, let's use Bill's concept of, do you make it easy for them to work with you? So I'm going to reformulate my message to them and see if I can negotiate the terms that work for me, and them. So, right now their terms, I don't really need to work with. I don't have to, based on the competition out there. So having said that, you bring all these different tools, and concepts that really help someone perform better.
Okay, so let's stop this, even though we may use this. Have you got a couple minutes could we spend a couple minutes on this, on how they want to do things, and the reason you first said, I don't need to work with these people. And so what are the terms that you don't like?
Okay. So when I bring a prospective candidate to an employer, I typically try not to work with the mid-level. Well, let me say it another way.
That's fine.
I tend to work with the business owners or senior level managers because they build businesses. They're not checking boxes and filling positions. This particular company says this is their rate that they pay, which honestly is more than I usually charge. But so I have no issue with that. But then they ask for a longer duration of guarantee. I don't agree with that for lots of reasons. When you place an employee, particularly in this industry, as an employer, you've got a really good idea whether that person's going to work out and they have the skill set that they said they had within the first 90 days. When you start talking 6 months or even a year, and you want to buy yourself some time, you could argue, yeah, okay, they're paying a premium for it. But I think that's when you're paying a premium to bring on a new skill set, it makes them less desirable to hire in the first place. Because of the industry, the nature of the industry, and there's a tremendous shortage of highly skilled people in the construction space, whether it's senior level management, senior level salespeople, people on the job sites, you name it. There's a tremendous shortage even today, and that's the commercial construction space. So if a company tells me, well, we pay X amount of percentage and we want a 180-day guarantee, but most of the industry does 90 days, why would I open up myself up to that liability of an extra 90 days? I don't really want to. I see no benefit to that. So I got to wait 106 months before I know whether this is going to work or not. There's a little bit of, I think, confidence. There's a little bit of almost arrogance, and I say that in a negative way because arrogance is a negative word to me, but I feel like saying to them, I don't need to work with you. Your competition's already interviewed this person.
But you haven't covered the whole thing. You've covered how they pay. You didn't like that, but you haven't covered. I think you started this out with part of the problem is you're also not working with top management with the way this particular.
Bingo. Exactly right. I always start with the top management if I can. Right. Sometimes I get pushed down to an administrative role, and that usually seldom works out. Right. Simply from the standpoint of that's their job to find qualified candidates. So I'm a competitor in their mind in many ways. Or, there's situations, unfortunately, where they have a person in place, but they want to go a different direction. And, the famous words, go a different direction. A typical administrative person doesn't have that mindset. They're not business builders typically. Some people are executives, part of the executive teams, depending on the size of the company and the scope of the company, but not many. So most of the time, they have received orders from us higher up to say, here's a position we want to fill. Go find somebody to fill this position.
Right. So in this situation, how are you, after the conversation we've just had here now on this video, what's your next step?
Well, I still don't have clarity in my own head how I'm going to approach them, but I do know I need to go in with questions, because they made it pretty clear that, one, they're not looking for this specific skill set. Two, these are their terms, take it or leave it. That's their attitude. Now, so in my view, I'm going to take a two-step approach. I'm going to go back to them and say, based on our conversation, if you're willing to work with this, I think I could do this and this for you, but here's what the general marketplace, does. By the way, your competition right down the road, one, I know they've already interviewed this person, and two, they accept these terms, and most people do. If that doesn't work for you, no problem. And, good luck to you, and we'll maybe we'll revisit this another time. Okay. And then after that call happens, if it goes that way, then I'm going to go back to, you always bridge, I've heard the term bridge back to power. And so if the conversation with this administrative person goes that way, then I'm going to go back to the individual who I left a voicemail with. And as of a conversation that happened, an independent conversation that happened yesterday, I'm going to name drop somebody and say, by the way, I appreciate you forwarding my information on to the people within your organization. Unfortunately, we couldn't come to terms to work together. However, I would like to talk to you about this specific individual that you've worked with in the past. That's my opening to the conversation to see if this senior level person changes the terms.
Okay. If you went back and you listened to this video, if you watch this video over again, and even if you can do it, the energy you have when you're going to talk to this mid-level person, I'm saying it's almost like you're almost going in and threatening them. You're not being warm.
You're right. You're right. And that's why I use the word arrogant. There's a little bit of arrogance at this point.
You're stressed. You don't like the fact that you're being asked to put in this position. You don't like the terms, and that's all showing up in your tonality.
These are the things that you key on. And you're right. You're exactly right. And I'm feeling frustrated, defensive, and all at the same time, I'm reminding myself, look at this. Honestly, look at this and hear what's being said. And how would you go back to, if you're going to use that ruler of, do I make it easy for them to work with me? It's not, I'm going at them a little aggressively. And I get
a
that.
little.
Just a little.
Your tone is amazing. You're going.
Well, that's the frustration. That's you and I speaking, because we've already built this familiarity. There's my rationalization. However, and that's another key word, is rationalize. When we rationalize we can rationalize anything.
Well, that's the reason. That's the reason. That is a great time. That's the reason I ask you to record your calls, make audio notes on your calls, because then you can tell me what you thought you did. You can tell me you went in lovingly and warm and so on and so forth. And when we listen to it back, you realize that, oh my God, no, my attitude was showing. And like your attitude, none of us seem to realize our attitude leaks out of the corner of our mouth. We got to not have that attitude. We can't cover it up, because it will leak out of the corner of our mouth. It shows up. I've done this with home improvement contractors all the time. And when they got their salespeople in a bullpen and they're making their calls and so on and so forth. I worked with this one company, and all of a sudden, once the guys became aware of it, their signal was to when somebody else they could hear it in somebody else's voice. The signal was
leaking up. Yeah, your attitude's leaking.
Yeah. And the bullpen became the whole guy, everybody in the room started to support one of each other when their egos or when they were starting to get frustrated on a call. And it's amazing when you can have everybody in the room understand the way we get it's on autopilot as human beings, then we start to learn how to change our automatic way of being. So I couldn't have asked for a better illustration of why I wanted to do this stuff live.
And I wanted to say a conflict, and I don't know if that's the right word, but I have this thought of, do I disrespect the middle-level person by just cutting off the conversation and go back to the power position? Or do I give this middle-level person a chance to close the door on me or open?
Interesting. I'm suggesting you go back to the guy who referred you down, not out of and it has nothing to do with disrespecting the person he delegated you to, or who he delegated the call to. I don't see it as disrespect, but there's an understanding that he doesn't have about how you operate.
Right, and I don't know. So as you're saying this, I'm listening and thinking, okay, what if I postpone my call back to the mid-level person who's in charge of filling positions? What if I postpone that call and go back to the person that I left a voicemail with
Right.
the intention of name dropping to get some feedback on a specific individual and kind of, give him a little bit of his own personal profile, so he knows that I know a little bit of what he is and what he does. That might be enough for him to call me back or accept my call. And then I open the door and say, listen, I want to work with you guys. I've got a unique talent that you're not aware of because they're moving in from another state. I've been told these are your terms, but this is what this is what your competition's doing.
I've been told your terms, and it's not but. I've been told your terms and right. It's not but.
Okay, so expand that. And what?
It's everything. You're just replacing the word but, because you're discounting stuff. So
you're right. You're right. See, this is where I know this stuff, but here's my blind spot. You're right. When someone says but, it discounted everything that went before it. Right. And that's what I just did to myself. But you stuck the mirror up and said, did you see what you just did? And I say, no, I didn't see it until you stuck the mirror up.
Yeah. So, I really don't think it's about discounting the middle person. I think if you speak to the middle person and don't get what you want, and then you go back over her head, I think that is worse. Personally,
that can be worse. You are correct.
I would go back to him and explain yourself. I don't know what the name dropping piece is, but explain.
Well, that's my intro. I have not talked to the senior level person. I've only left a voicemail, right, and then they must have transferred my information. However, right, conversation that came up yesterday and another separate conversation that happened last week with two separate individuals knows this senior level person and give me enough personal information and professional information to drop a name. Right. I could go in with what I intend to do if I get a voicemail and say, listen, your name has come up a couple different times in recent conversations. There's an individual that you've worked with in the past at this specific company. If you have a moment, give me a call back. I'd like to talk to you about him.
Okay.
That opens the door for him to be helpful, and he may be more inclined to call me back,
Right.
or take my call, whatever the case. And then I get into the, oh, by the way, I appreciate you forwarding my information along. I'd like to work with you guys. Here's your terms, but I got to tell you, this is what, I use the word but. So now I got stuck there. If I don't use the word but, how do I transition?
You use the word "but" on autopilot. The word
did.
we're going to, yes, you're going to even when the word comes out of your mouth the next time and you're saying "but," you said no, excuse me, and just get so that your "and" is used where you want to use "but."
You know, there's some people watching this exchange and thinking, what's the big deal? But there is a big deal. The
Yes.
subtle nuances. And like I said, and you said it too, when you say but, you've discounted whatever came before it. Whatever came before it, you discounted. And so you've got more work to do, to more objections to overcome. So I'm looking for a better way to say that. These, you know, at the moment, these are your terms. I will tell you, yeah, that's how I say it. I don't use the word but. I just say I will tell you my experience with the industry and specifically competition in your own backyard. This is what normally happens.
Right.
Is this acceptable for you?
So
Something to that effect.
I was wondering if that would work. If in this situation we can use that so and so. I'm wondering, just wondering. Gentle,
Yeah.
gentle.
Yeah. I was wondering if that would work for you.
Yeah. And I personally, I was ordinarily, you know, it's funny, it's because it's officially isn't a coaching call, but I would have you call him back and acknowledge the fact that he already has referred you to the person you have. He has
Yeah.
a thank you for that. Even if it's voicemail, and just explain that you were talking to so and so, and I understand this, and I'd like to at least have another conversation with you and a chance to talk to you about what we've got here, and what we could possibly do that you're the person that only top level management can be involved with.